I have finally seen every major DC animated movie that has been released, so I thought I'd stop and rank all 52 that I have seen, and like I said, these are the major DC animated movies. These are just the mainstream movies or movies that tie into a TV show, so none of the Lego movies other than the Lego Batman movie, and none of the Batman Unlimited films will be included in this list, but pretty much everything else is on the table. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the list. Coming in at number 52 is Batman and Harley Quinn. I hate to be predictable, but this movie absolutely blows in my opinion. Return to Batman the Animated Series, return to the DCAU. Absolute disappointment in my opinion. The humor did not hit at all. Kevin Conroy is still great as always, but he was not given a lot with the dialogue he had. This movie could have been so much more, and it could have incorporated actual good humor like a lot of the original DCAU run did, but we didn't get that in this movie, sadly. Very similar situation with Superman Brainiac attacks. This movie is just dull and boring, and it has the DCAU animation, it has the DCAU voice cast, Tim Daly is Superman, but it is not set in the DCAU, and I am thankful for that because this movie is extremely disappointing. Just looking at the animation, you would think it would be great because you would think it's part of the DCAU. It is not, and that is evident. It's weird that it's the same animation style. While being its own thing, I do prefer this to Batman and Harley Quinn. I just think that movie was way more disappointing than this one was, but this is still a boring watch. You'll notice a trend in these bottom movies. Disappointment. Batman Gotham Knight was extremely disappointing. I have not seen this movie in years, and as a Batman fan, as a movie fan, it's pretty evident how bad it is with me never revisiting it, never having the urge to revisit it. It's 6 separate stories that was supposed to tie in with the Dark Knight trilogy. It didn't even tie in with that. False advertising probably to get more people to buy it and watch it. And the movie just is not that good. Superman Doomsday. A lot of people probably classify this movie as disappointing as well. I can't really speak to that because I'm not as big of a Superman fan as actual Superman fans are, but I do respect Superman as a character, and I do think the first half of this movie is actually quite enjoyable, but the second half of this movie, it completely falls apart. It gets really weird, and I don't know how much of it was in the actual comic or how much they made up, but the Death of Superman does this adaptation way better, as you'll be able to see later on in this list. The worst thing to come out of the Teen Titans show, in my opinion, is definitely the movie Teen Titans Trouble in Tokyo. Now, if they were gonna do a movie, which I'm glad they did a movie, but I wish it was better than this, I wish they would have done a movie with Deathstroke, or the Trigon arc could have tied into a movie. Just having it be this random adventure in Japan that doesn't really tie into the overall show is kind of lame, but that type of thing can be done well, as you'll see later on in this list yet again, but just nothing about this movie appeals to me. There are some fun moments between the characters, but that's really it. None of the plot intrigues me or any of that, so I'm sure a lot of people do enjoy this movie more than I do, but I think it's really disappointing, and the show is much better than this movie is. Back to disappointing comic adaptations, Batman the Killing Joke. Now, I do enjoy this movie more than a lot of people, and that is saying something as it's coming in at number 47 on this list. All the Batgirl stuff I absolutely despise. That's pretty much agreed upon by everyone that's seen the movie. The actual Killing Joke stuff, though, I find it enjoyable. I think Mark Hamill gives a good enough performance. He has had way better performances, which is kind of disappointing because Mark Hamill always said he'd come back to voice the Joker for this movie, and he came back to voice the Joker for this movie. The script didn't do this movie justice, though. But when you put Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill together, you're always at least going to get some enjoyable interactions between their two characters, Batman and the Joker. Wonder Woman Bloodlines. I was looking forward to this movie quite a bit, then I saw it and felt extremely underwhelmed. This movie has no charm, no charisma like the original animated Wonder Woman movie does. The original blows this out of the water, and this was just disappointing to see. I know people love this movie so much more than I do. This movie has actually kind of grown on me because of some things people have said. I've took that into consideration. I still can't put it that high on the list though. All-Star Superman just isn't for me. The movie just isn't made for me. I'm not saying it's a terrible movie. If you love the movie, love the movie. Love what you love. And I know I'm in the minority in really disliking this movie. I know I am. I've never read the comic. Maybe I would enjoy the comic more than the movie. I don't know how faithful of an adaptation this is, but I don't know. Some parts of the movie are just really weird to me, and I get that it's a final Superman tale, and it just tries to incorporate everything, and it does that okay, but Even Lex in this movie, I don't love Lex Luthor in this movie. I love a lot of versions of Lex, but I can't really get behind this version. I really wish I loved this movie as much as a lot of people do. Staying on the Superman trend, The Reign of the Superman. I think this is an okay movie, a very disappointing sequel. If Death of Superman didn't exist and this happened, well, this wouldn't make sense, first of all, but would this maybe be a better movie since I compare these two so much because they're part of the same story? Possibly, but probably not. I don't really love this movie up until the point that Superman comes back. Cyborg Superman is a very uninvesting villain in my opinion. I think he's one of the weakest in any of these movies. And here comes another movie I know a lot of people love, but I can't really get behind, Justice League War. I've discussed it in the past. It's mostly probably Darkseid for me. I think Darkseid is an extremely disappointing villain in this movie, and Darkseid is one of my all-time favorite comic characters. I think the first half of this movie is good, and all the characters are written extremely well. I really do enjoy the first half of this movie, then everything just starts to fall apart for me in the second half. Superman Unbound. I wouldn't say I enjoy this more than Justice League War, but I would say the problems I have with Justice League War are a bit bigger than they are with Superman Unbound. I just think Superman Unbound is kind of boring, to be honest. Parts of this movie are entertaining enough, and I actually do kind of like the end when Superman is explaining humanity and what it means to be human to Brainiac, and that's kind of how he defeats him, which is pretty cool in my opinion. Green Lantern Emerald Knight is kind of like Batman Gotham Knight, but done better. I think the stories told in this movie are really hit and miss. I really enjoyed some of them, and I really had a boring time watching some of the others, but overall I think it's okay, and as a collective whole, the movie is solid enough. I think the movie actually does a pretty good job of making Hal Jordan feel like the main character, but not really giving him the spotlight, because he's not really involved in any of the stories he tells, but he is the narrator of the movie, really, which I found to be pretty unique and interesting. Another movie I found Darkseid to be pretty disappointing in, Batman Superman Apocalypse. I think some things about this movie are pretty interesting. I think it's interesting that it's Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. You got the Trinity, Supergirl is there, and it's those four against Apocalypse. Definitely me being a Batman fan, of course the highlight of the movie for me is the Batman Darkseid encounter. Batman showcasing how truly powerful intelligence can be. And I have to respect them showing Supergirl some love. I just really love it when they show lesser known characters that aren't the main core of the DC, like Batman and Superman, Wonder Woman, in these movies. I just really enjoy that. Batman Mystery of the Batwoman is maybe one of the most hit or miss animated movies I've seen. I think at points this movie can be pretty brilliant and the dialogue can be pretty sharp. At other points this movie can feel kinda dumb and lazy. It's really hit or miss scene from scene, really. Kevin Conroy is great as always. I'm gonna keep saying that multiple times in this video, I can already tell. The actual mystery starts off kind of interesting, but I think it becomes pretty obvious what the scenario is as the movie progresses, so as an actual mystery, I don't really think the movie works too well, which everyone's different. Everyone interprets things differently. Maybe you didn't see it, I definitely did. I think Bane's actually pretty good in this. All the other villains are just okay in my opinion. I don't think the Penguin is that great. I don't think any of the villains other than Bane are that good in this movie. I think Deathstroke is definitely the highlight of Son of Batman, and it is interesting how they incorporate a lot of Batman's rogues into this movie like Killer Croc and Man-Bat. Damian, I hate him the most in this movie. I think he gets much better in Batman vs. Robin, especially towards the end of that movie, and Batman Bad Blood, and just later on in the DC animated movie universe. Deathstroke is easily the best part for me, and he's really the only reason I'd want to go back and rewatch this movie, but I think he is much better in Judas Contract than he is in this movie, so that kind of keeps me away from this movie, and that kind of bumped this movie down after Judas Contract was released. Justice League Throne of Atlantis. Much like Son of Batman, I think the villain of the movie is easily the highlight. Orm! Ocean Master, he is one of my favorite DC animated movie universe villains, and he only has this movie to showcase how good he is. Sam Witwer voices him to perfection. Honestly, just the fact that this is connected to other movies is what kinda knocks this movie down for me. The actual Justice League in the movie, I don't think is that interesting. Cyborg is the only character other than Aquaman that I find interesting. Batman and Green Lantern have a few fun scenes together, Green Lantern and Flash, but they really don't get fleshed out in this movie. Aquaman gets a lot of development, but in later movies he's barely used, so what was the point of this movie in the greater scheme of things? I think this movie would have benefited from being a standalone movie with some story arcs changed around to make it more warranted towards just an Aquaman tale rather than Aquaman joining the League. This is another DC animated movie that I hear get a lot of praise, Green Lantern First Flight, but I don't love the character Green Lantern, so maybe that's why I don't love this movie as much as some people. But I think this is a pretty solid Green Lantern movie overall. I think it's pretty good telling the origin of Hal Jordan and how he became one of the greatest Green Lanterns, if not the greatest Green Lantern, and Sinestro turning from the Green Lantern Corps to make his own corps, the Sinestro Corps. I think all that is done pretty well, but honestly, the climax of this movie is what takes it down for me because I just thought it was really odd and didn't make much sense what happened, and I won't spoil it for you if you haven't seen it. A Batman movie that isn't really a Batman movie. Batman Bad Blood. It's more of a Nightwing movie than anything, I'd say. Nightwing and Batwoman movie. Well, it's really a Bat Family movie that's more about every member of the Bat Family that's been introduced up to this point. That's not Batman. That being said, for Bruce Wayne not being in much of this movie and what he is in it, a large part of it being him brainwashed, it's a pretty good movie. I think it's written pretty well. I think the villains they used are really interesting. They use a bunch of B and C listers, maybe even D listers like the Calculator. Like, who was the Calculator? Who knows who the Calculator is before this movie? Overall, I think it's a pretty fun watch, and there are definitely better and more enjoyable DC animated movies, but I think this movie is pretty damn good for what it is. And something I should have addressed is everything from Son and Batman up so far, and that I will mention, I at least enjoy. Like, I really do enjoy it. I think it's a good movie. Solid movie. So with that being said, kinda the death of Superman and reign of the Superman conundrum here. Batman vs. Two Fase. I think the first movie, Batman Return of the Caped Crusaders, is much better. It's got more of the camp, more of the charm. Maybe not more of the camp, but it's definitely got more of that Batman 66 charm that you're accustomed to from seeing the old 66 show. I think it's interesting introducing Two-Face into this world. I was really excited for this movie, and this being Adam West's last time voicing Batman, of course, this movie's always going to have a special place in my heart, even if I don't love it as much as I do a lot of other movies. Another movie I wish I would have enjoyed more, I still think it's good, Justice League vs. the Fatal Five. I don't really think the Fatal Five are super interesting villains. I think the actual Justice League stuff in this is great, the dynamics between all the heroes, Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. It's all great, it's great seeing them all back together on screen. It's just, nostalgia hits you so hard. For Jessica Cruz fans, I'm sure you love this movie. I don't know anything about Jessica Cruz. I still enjoyed this movie, but I wish I would have saw more of the original Justice League and not Fatal Five, Starboy, Jessica Cruz. It doesn't really fit my taste. That's why my favorite parts of this movie are the parts with Batman, the parts with Superman. I do enjoy seeing the original Justice League's interactions with new characters, like their interactions with Starboys and their interaction with Jessica Cruz. That stuff is really interesting to me, and how Batman is training Miss Martian to become a member of the League. I really like that plot element, and I love the Arkham Asylum scene. So am I upset that they used Jessica Cruz and Starboy? No, I'm not, because there's always room for this world to grow, and that makes me happy. I like seeing this world grow. I'm glad that 2006 wasn't the end for the DCAU. This movie may be the hardest for me to place. Batman Year One. Is it a faithful adaptation? Yes, it is. Is it a well-made movie? Yes, it is. Do I enjoy it? Kind of. I enjoyed some of the action tidbits. I enjoy Gordon more in this movie than I do Batman, which is kind of disappointing. Ben McKenzie as the voice of Batman just has always thrown me off. I don't know why. I love Ben McKenzie in Gotham. I love him as Gordon in Gotham, but him as Batman in Batman Year One, it just doesn't sound right to me. It does not sound like Batman is talking when he opens his mouth. The animation style, I'm not a huge fan of, and this movie is just kind of boring to me at points. I know a lot of people love this movie, and I do enjoy it. but there are just so many more DC animated movies I prefer. And at number 31, Superman, Batman, Public Enemies. There's a lot about this movie I enjoy. There's a lot that I find kind of convoluted and dumb. I enjoy all the Batman-Superman interactions. I think Lex Luthor is pretty good in this. I like Amanda Waller's involvement. I like that a bunch of the DC villains are incorporated into this movie, but corrupt superheroes are something I've never been able to get behind, really. Like, I don't enjoy superheroes being corrupt. It just kind of takes away from them being heroes. Like, how are they supposed to get their reputation back? I basically just find this movie to kind of be a worse version of the Cadmus arc that Justice League Unlimited Season 2 had. So because of that, there's not much of a reason for me to ever revisit this movie, but I do think it's still quite enjoyable because of all the Batman-Superman interactions. So that was part 1 of every DC animated movie ranked. Next video we'll start with number 30 and probably go to 11, and then we'll save the top 10 for the final video. So I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.